Hello everyone! I'm so happy you're here with me today. We're going to practice English through another emotional story. Today we'll use the shadowing technique. First, listen to the sentence. Then, pause the video and repeat it after me. Try to copy my tone, rhythm, and pronunciation like a shadow following the sound. Alright, let's begin. The story is called The Promise We Never Chose. It's about two people bound by a family agreement and how they learn to choose each other for real. My name is Nora. I'm 23 years old. And I grew up knowing one thing. My future wasn't entirely mine. Two powerful families, two long traditions, one old agreement, an arranged marriage. Mine, his, Julian Hale. A name I heard my whole life, a face I barely knew. We saw each other at events, at fundraisers, at formal dinners where everyone smiled too brightly. We weren't friends. We weren't enemies. We were inevitable. But inevitability doesn't make things easier or less strange. So I did what most people my age do. I lived my life. I studied. I traveled. I spent nights laughing with friends in small rooftop bars. I pretended the future wasn't already written for me. One evening we were at our usual place, a warm, noisy bar in the center of the city. My friends sat around a high table, telling stories too loudly, teasing each other, enjoying the feeling of being young and beautifully careless. The music was low, the lights were golden. Outside, the city glowed like it had secrets. I felt safe, untouched by duty, untouched by promises I never made. Then the door opened, and everything shifted. Julian walked in, tall, quiet, focused, wearing the kind of confidence that doesn't need attention, the kind that was taught since childhood. Our eyes met, just for a second, but it felt like a thread pulling tight. My friends saw it. Of course they did. We all grew up in the same world. We all knew the arrangement. We all knew who he was to me. "Your future husband is here," Leo whispered dramatically. I hit him with a napkin, but my chest tightened anyway. Julian walked toward the bar, ordered a drink, didn't look at me again. But the room suddenly felt too small. A few minutes later, he moved toward our table, slowly, politely, like someone approaching a wild animal he didn't want to frighten. "Nora," he said. A polite nod, a polite smile, a polite distance. "Julian," I answered, trying not to sound awkward, failing. My friends exchanged looks. The kind of looks that say, "This is going to be fun." "So," Leo said, grinning, "when's the wedding?" "Shut up," I whispered. But it was too late. Julian heard. His jaw tightened. My face burned. He cleared his throat. "I don't want to interrupt," he said softly. "I just wanted to say hello." His voice was calm, measured, almost too formal for a bar. "Do you want to join us?" I asked. Politeness answering politeness, hoping he'd say no. He said yes. The conversation tried to happen. It really did. But everything was stiff, careful, unnatural. He asked about my work. I asked about his. He asked about my friends. They asked how many children we planned to have. I wanted to sink into the floor. After 20 painfully long minutes, Julian leaned closer and whispered, "Would you like a ride home? You seem overwhelmed." I wasn't overwhelmed. I was mortified. But I nodded. We stepped out into the cool night air. The city lights reflected on the wet pavement. Cars hummed by. People laughed in distant doorways. We walked to his car in silence. He opened the door for me. Old school. Unnecessary, but strangely gentle. Inside, the car smelled like cedar and rain. He said, I'm sorry about inside. I know this whole situation is complicated. I let out a breath. A long one. The word you're looking for, I said, is weird. He laughed. A small laugh, but real. We drove through the city. Lights flickering through the windows. Silence settling between us. Not heavy, just unfamiliar. He kept his eyes on the road. I kept my eyes on the passing buildings. But something was shifting. Something small. Something quiet. When he pulled up to my apartment, he didn't say goodbye immediately. He rested his hands on the steering wheel. Thinking. Nora, he said, I want you to know I never wanted this to be forced. I don't want you to feel trapped. My throat tightened. Because no one had said that to me before. Not from his side. Not from mine. Thank you, I said quietly. I don't want you to feel trapped either. He looked at me then. Really looked. Not as a duty, not as an obligation, but as a person. I stepped out of the car, turned back. He gave me the smallest smile. Warm, careful, sincere. I closed the door and went upstairs, and for the first time in my life, I wondered, what if this wasn't a cage? What if this was something else? Something I hadn't even considered. Other night I had just left the bar. My friend stayed inside. I needed fresh air. I needed a moment to breathe. A moment without jokes about my future husband. A moment without Julian's unreadable eyes on me. The street was almost empty, just the soft hum of cars and the glow of the streetlights on wet pavement. I walked slowly, checking my phone, and then I heard footsteps behind me. Quick, unsteady, too close. I turned. A man I didn't know stood there, a stranger. Maybe a little drunk, maybe too confident, maybe both. Hey, he said, stepping closer. You are in that bar, right? Let me walk you. My heart tightened. No thanks, I said calmly. I'm fine. But he didn't move away. He leaned in, too close. I'm just being nice. Come on. I stepped back. My pulse jumped. The street suddenly felt smaller, narrow, like the air had thinned. I said no, I repeated. My voice was steady. My hands weren't. He smirked. Don't be like that. He reached toward my arm. Fast, unexpected, and then another hand caught his wrist, strong, cold, unmistakable. Julian. He stood between us before I even realized he was there. Tall, sharp, focused. His jaw set in a way I had never seen before. She said no, Julian said quietly. No shouting, no threats, just steel in his voice. A type of steel that makes people listen. The stranger laughed. Who the hell are you? He asked, trying to sound bold. But I heard the crack in his confidence. Julian didn't hesitate, not even half a second. I'm her fiancé. The words fell heavy, certain, final. My breath caught, my mind went blank. Hearing it out loud from him in that moment felt like the world shifted under my feet. The man froze, then stepped back again. He muttered something and turned away. Fast. Silence wrapped around us. Only our breathing filled the air. Julian didn't look at me at first. He kept watching until the man disappeared around the corner. Only then did he turn. Nora, are you okay? He asked, softer than I expected. Gentler. More human. I nodded. But the truth was, I didn't know what I felt. Fear, yes. Relief, yes. But also something warm. Something I didn't want to name. Not yet. You followed me? I finally asked. No, he said, but then he added, I just noticed you left, and I didn't want you walking alone. My chest tightened, in a different way now. For a moment we just stood that, under the streetlight. Two people who barely knew how to talk to each other. Two people who were supposed to become husband and wife. Two people who weren't ready, but maybe were starting to be. Thank you, I said quietly. really quietly, like the words were fragile. Julian looked at me then, really looked, and something moved in his eyes. Something warm, something real. "You don't have to thank me," he said. "I'll always look out for you, Nora." And the way he said it, slow, steady, certain, felt like a promise I didn't expect, a promise I suddenly wanted to believe. Days passed, then weeks, and the world didn't end. Nothing dramatic happened. No scandal, no fight, just small things, messages, simple ones. "How was your exam? Do you still like that cafe a Fifth? I saw something today that reminded me of you." Sometimes we talked late into the night, about books, about fears, about childhood stories we never told anyone. He wasn't cold, he wasn't distant, he wasn't the person I imagined. He was careful, he was thoughtful, he was quietly funny, and, beneath all that, he was lonely too. One evening, after a charity dinner neither of us wanted to attend, we walked outside together. It was raining lightly, the soft kind of rain that feels like a whisper. We stood under an old stone archway, watching the water fall in silver lines. "You know," Julian said, "I used to think marriages like ours were just strategy. Numbers, alliance, responsibility. And now?" I asked. He looked at me, directly, honestly. "Now I think," he said slowly, "that we deserve more than strategy. We deserve to choose each other. Or not. But he paused, breath shaking just a little. "I think I'm choosing you." Something inside me opened, bright, terrifying, real. I stepped closer, just an inch, just enough for him to understand. "I think," I whispered, "I'm choosing you too." The rain kept falling, soft, steady, like a blessing. We didn't kiss. Not yet. Not then. It was too sacred, too new, too much. But our hands touched, accidentally, intentionally. Fingers brushing, fingers lingering, fingers learn each other like a first language, and that was enough. More than enough. Our love didn't explode. It grew, quietly, warmly. In shared rides, in late-night calls, in gentle arguments, in silent moments where everything made sense. We learned each other's laughter, each other's fears, each other's dreams beyond the ones shaped by family names, and for the first time, our future felt like ours, not written for us, but written with us. Not a promise we inherited, a promise we chose. Great work! You finished the story! Now, I recommend listening to it again and repeating each sentence out loud. This will help you improve your speaking, listening, and pronunciation skills. If you enjoyed this lesson, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for practicing English with me today. See you next time.